In the early 1960s, if you wanted to see the absolute pinnacle of human engineering, you didn't look at a rocket, you looked at the USS Thresher. She was the lead ship of a new class of hunter-killer nuclear submarines. She was faster, quieter, and could dive deeper than anything the world had ever seen. To the Soviet Union, she was a ghost they couldn't catch. To the 129 men on board, she was a marvel of the modern age. But on April 10, 1963, just 120 miles east of Cape Cod, the Thresher was about to face an enemy that didn't care about nuclear reactors or Cold War politics. It was an enemy that had been waiting for them for eons, the sheer, crushing weight of the Atlantic Ocean. It was 7:47 a.m. The Thresher was beginning a deep test dive. This is a routine but high-tension procedure where a submarine slowly descends to its maximum operational depth, roughly 1,300 feet, to make sure every bolt, pipe, and seal can handle the pressure. On the surface, the rescue ship USS Skylark waited, listening to the underwater telephone. The mood on the Thresher was likely professional, even calm. At these depths, the ocean isn't just water, it's a physical weight. At 1,300 feet, the water pressure is nearly 600 pounds per square inch. That means every single square foot of the Thresher's hull was being pushed inward by over 40 tons of force. The only thing keeping the crew alive was the integrity of the steel and the thousands of silver braid joints in the piping. And that's when a sound echoed through the hull that made every man's heart stop. We now know, based on decades of investigation and recently declassified sonar data, that the nightmare began with a single silver braid joint in a saltwater pipe. It was a tiny flaw, likely no bigger than a fingernail. But at 1,300 feet, a leak isn't a drip. When that pipe failed, the ocean didn't just leak in. It exploded inward with the force of a jet engine. The spray was so powerful it would have cut through flesh like a saw. But more importantly, that high-pressure mist filled the engine room, creating a cloud of saltwater spray that drifted directly onto an electrical panel. The result was a catastrophic short circuit. The submarine S-brained the nuclear reactor, sensed a fault, and did exactly what it was programmed to do in an emergency. It scranned, the control rods dropped, the reactor shut down to prevent a meltdown, and just like that, the USS Thresher lost all propulsion. She was now a heavy steel coffin, dead in the water, 1,300 feet down, and starting to sink backward into the abyss. The captain, Lieutenant Commander John Harvey, had one card left to play: blow the main ballast. This is the emergency move. You pump high-pressure air into the tanks to kick the water out and make the sub buoyant so it rockets to the surface. On the Skylark, they heard the rush of air over the hydrophones. It sounded like hope, but then physics played a cruel trick. It's called the Joule-Thomson effect. When you take air at extremely high pressure and release it into a pipe, it expands so rapidly that the temperature drops instantly. The moisture in the Thresher's airlines didn't just get cold, it froze. Within seconds, literal plugs of ice formed inside the pipes, completely blocking the airflow. The ballast tanks remained full of water. The sub continued to sink. On the surface, the Skylark received a final, garbled transmission. It was broken up by the sound of rushing water. The last words heard were "exceeding test depth," and then at 9:18 a.m., a sound that the sonar operators described as a muted thud. For a long time, people wondered if the crew suffered. Did they sit in the dark for hours as they sank? Thanks to SOS's sonar tapes declassified as recently as 2024 and 2026, we have the grim answer. When a submarine reaches its crush depth, the end isn't a slow crumble. It's an instantaneous event. The hull of the Thresher imploded in less than 0.1 seconds. To put that in perspective, it takes 0.3 seconds just to blink your eye. The pressure change was so violent and so fast that the air inside the sub would have briefly reached the temperature of the surface of the sun due to compression. The 129 men on board didn't even have time for their nervous systems to register pain. One moment they were fighting for their lives. The next, they were part of the Eternal Patrol. It took months to find her. The Thresher didn't settle in one piece. She was shattered into 6 major sections across the seafloor, 8,400 feet down. As of 2026, the U.S. Navy and the Department of Energy still monitor the site. It's a war grave, protected and silent. The good news for the environment is that the nuclear reactor remains intact, sitting in its own debris field with no hazardous radiation leaks. It is a monument of steel at the bottom of the Atlantic. The tragedy of the Thresher was a massive blow to the Navy's pride, but it birthed something that has saved thousands of lives since: the SUBSAFE program. The Navy realized they couldn't just build fast subs, they had to build unkillable ones. They threw out silver brazing and replaced it with full penetration welding, checked by X-rays. They redesigned the ballast systems with massive pipes that could never freeze shut. They installed remote hydraulic valves that could seal a leak in a fraction of a second from the control room. Most importantly, they changed how the reactor works. Now, if a sub loses power, they can use residual heat to keep the propellers turning just long enough to get to the surface. The result? Since SUBSAFE was implemented in 1963, the U.S. Navy has never lost a certified submarine, not one. The 129 men of the Thresher paid the ultimate price, but in doing so, they rewrote the rules of the deep. They are the reason why, today, a submariner can dive into the dark and know for a certainty that they are coming back up. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the strange and tragic history of the USS Thresher, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories from the dark.